It is a real pleasure. This is one of the big pluses of being able to have these sorts of events online. We have access to people that we normally wouldn't, and we're so thrilled, Brian, that you could join us. It's my pleasure to introduce Brian Tenslinger. Brian works at Kiwanis International in the Global Membership and Education Department, and he's part of a team that works closely with Kiwanis districts, providing training and education resources with an emphasis on membership. And that's we have been talking about different aspects of how we need to adjust to make sure that our membership recruitment is optimal. Brian is an experienced professional in the fields of higher education, administration, and nonprofit management. He has an extensive background in leadership and organization training, as well as a background in risk and harm reduction. He's done research about volunteer engagement and to better understand what a healthy volunteer program looks like, and keeping an eye on the future. And Brian's research has actually led him to do a TED Talk, which was filmed in January of 2020. So without further ado, it's my pleasure to let Brian lead us in a session and better understand why people volunteer. Thank you very much, Brian.
You're welcome. Thank you so much. It's a pleasure to join you today. And greetings from Indianapolis, Indiana, where I live. And as Ken mentioned, I work at Kiwanis International, and I'm part of that global membership and education team. I'm one of the staff members that manages a portfolio of Kiwanis districts, Western Canada being one of those districts. Normally, we would be traveling to spend time with you at a district convention or education day like this, but due to circumstances beyond our control, I'm joining you live from my home study just north of Indianapolis, where it's a beautiful, beautiful day here today. I have just a little bit of background about me. I spent 25 years working as a volunteer, but also managing volunteers in some capacity, both on the college and university campus. And then I became the executive director of a nonprofit organization here in the United States for 10 years. Afterwards, I left and joined the team at Kiwanis International. It was time for a global experience, which this job has definitely provided for me. I'm part of the staff that has been very fortunate to have traveled to Asia Pacific and spent time with our Kiwanians in the Asia Pacific region. My travels have included trips to Taipei, as well as most recently Kathmandu, Nepal, where I got to be there when our Nepal district received their official charter from at the time, President Daniel Vigneron. So that was such a thrill, such a thrill. And what I've learned is, and we probably know this, kids are kids no matter where they live in the world. They have very similar needs, but different access, to get those resources. And I've also learned that volunteering is kind of in our DNA. It's in our spirit. And so I've done quite a bit of research, and hopefully this will help you better understand a little bit about why people volunteer, but then spending a deep dive into why people volunteer for an organization like the one we love, Kiwanis. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen and share some information. All of the information I'm sharing is yours to use. There's nothing weird about it until we get to one slide, which you'll see. So I'll build up some anticipation there. So give me just a second here. Slideshow from beginning. Okay. So why people volunteer? I am very lucky to have been part of a family. My parents always volunteered and did things for the community. So I grew up, again, in my DNA. I grew up just doing these things because that was what you did. My dad volunteered heavily with the church. We grew up in a Roman Catholic family. My mom volunteered in the hospital, and it's just what we did. My sisters and I are all educators in some capacity. And we spend time outside of our professional life doing volunteer work. I serve as a district governor. That's my formal volunteer title for my fraternity. I'm a member of a social fraternity here in the United States. And similar to Governor Rowland, I have a district that I oversee and work with the volunteers there. So I not only manage volunteers professionally, but I manage volunteers as a volunteer. So I kind of like what I do, which is fun. And it did lead to a TED Talk opportunity, which is public domain. You're welcome to watch it. I have a very unique last name. So if you Google search Tenslinger TED Talk, you'll find it. It's there. So some of the information I'm going to share with you appeared in the TED Talk. TED Talks, if you've never seen one, they're about 12 minutes long. You stand on a red dot, and you're not allowed to move off that red dot, and you give a little nugget of information. This is a little bit more than a nugget, but hopefully we'll have some fun. So a lot of my research is accredited to my work with a colleague of ours, Jan van Hoeve. Jan is me, but in our office in Ghent, Belgium. I'm not sure if you're aware, but we do have an office in Belgium. And Jan and I both kind of nerd out over this idea of researching volunteer and volunteerism. And Jan and I have shared a lot of resources together. So some of what you'll see will have an international global feel, and some of it is North American centric. Within the Kiwaniverse, as I like to call it, here's what we have known just through some quick data searching. Our organization has changed. In a lot of communities, our Kiwanis clubs have a very poor impact, and they are, quite frankly, the best kept secret in town. The sign has kind of faded. Pictured is a picture of us. This is very common in the United States. As you drive into a new community, there's a sign, "Welcome to this community," and then it has pieces of different service organizations that are part of that community. And the Kiwanis logo is very faded. It's very hard to recognize. It's right in the middle. It's right where your eye would take you, but it's faded, and that's what's happening with a lot of our clubs. And statistically, 58% of our membership has declined over the past 10 to 15 years. We are not where we used to be in terms of membership. That's a global statistic. We have also done some research with our members over the past 10 years, member satisfaction surveys, and most recently in the United States, a survey on diversity, equity, and inclusion. And what we're finding is that a lot of our members are not satisfied with their experience, and membership retention for them is not looking good. The common issues that we have found, and maybe you have experienced this with a club or in a division, there's apathy in the club. It's the same 5 or 6 people who are doing all of the work. And the members who are not in leadership roles don't feel like they have a place. Our membership size is either net zero or decreasing. It's very rare that we see an increase in membership without some intentional efforts. Our clubs are operating in the comfort zone, and we're going to get to that in just a second. What Kiwanis is known for, our signature projects, they've become irrelevant in some communities. We have some Kiwanis clubs that are just hanging on to that pancake breakfast that's done year after year after year because we've always done it this way. And it's just not working. The other thing that we've observed is there's quite a bit of bystander behavior in our clubs. People are turning a blind eye to behavior of our fellow Kiwanians that is uncomfortable or unnecessary. And it's allowing and it's enabling our clubs to exist in an unhealthy manner. We'll touch base on that in a little bit. A culture. Every club has its own culture, and this is the gift of Kiwanis. We have international bylaws, but it's really the club that drives the decisions as to how they're going to function in the community. And they operate with a culture, and culture includes their beliefs, their values, their priorities, and their language. And their language may include, acronyms or working with a particular school. Their beliefs may be, we believe in giving scholarships. We believe in more philanthropic than hands-on service. So it depends. And that's the beauty of Kiwanis. No two clubs are identical because no two communities are identical. But what we have found through a lot of this research and also globally looking outside of Kiwanis is that people do want to volunteer and join a like-minded community. But there's always a but. Some of our clubs today lack relevance. They're just there. They lack relevance. They're disconnected from the community. And some of them are operating, quite frankly, about 30 years in the past. So we're going to take a trip down memory lane to the year 1986. 1986. That was 35 years ago. 35 years ago, this was the computer that many of us used at the time. It was the Apple Mac Plus, and it had a price tag of US over $2,000 US. I know this for a fact because I financed one at that time. And it was my first credit card purchase. And I thought it was like a mortgage for me. It was crazy. And you had to use the discs, and there's only certain things you could do. This was technology in 1986. The boombox and cassette tapes were also a big hit during this time. And so was that hair, that long hair, and the mustaches. But this is how we traditionally listen to music. Kids today will never know the pain of having to make a mix tape, where you hold the tape recorder up to the radio and you try and get the right song, and they'll never understand that the need to have a good pencil nearby if the tape got loose. They just don't get it. They go to Spotify or whatever they're using, and they get beautiful, beautiful music. They don't understand the glory of this. They also don't understand what happens to a cassette tape if you leave it in the car too long in the hot sun. It ruins the music. 35 years ago in the entertainment industry, Top Gun debuted in movie theaters, and the Academy Award went to Out of Africa. 35 years ago, this was big. The Montreal Canadiens won the Stanley Cup, defeating the Calgary Flames. This was a big one, and it took 4 playoff games in order to get this championship. Around the globe, we also saw, as a nation here in the United States, we grieved for the first time when the Space Shuttle Challenger exploded on live television. And many of us, especially my age, can tell you exactly where we were when this took place. Significant to this was the first teacher in space. Krista McAuliffe was the first teacher to go in space, and her classroom was watching. So this was a pretty big watershed moment for the space industry. Around the globe, 35 years ago is when the Chernobyl disaster took place. And we were exposed to a different side of power and energy by going through this. Not quite 35 years ago, but 32 years ago, Kiwanis had a significant paradigm shift, and that's when women were allowed membership into our organization. We just passed the 32-year mark. In 1987, women were allowed to join Kiwanis, and it was because of a lawsuit, quite frankly. And 35 years ago, this guy was a freshman in college. That would be me. This guy was a freshman in college, which is how I remember some of this stuff. A lot has changed over the past 35 years, if you think about those fields, and some of it includes me. I went from a lot of curly, wavy hair, drum major of the high school marching band, to I'm bald, and in where I am. So let's jump forward. So I tend to think, pretty milestone years for us. The year 2000 was a big milestone. Y2K. We focused a lot on 2020. This is a big milestone year, and the next big milestone year that a lot of industries are looking towards is the year 2050. So let's take a look at what 2050 holds for us. A child born today in the year 2021 will be 29 years old in 2050. They will have graduated from college or university if that's their chosen career path, and they may be a parent themselves. We do know that the world population is expected to increase by more than 30% of what it is today, and that 1 in every 6 people on Earth will be 65 years or older. 1 in every 6. This is actually a decrease. There's a lot of research that shows that people are going to live a lot longer, but the 65 and under range will be quite significant by the year 2050. Something we need to think about with Kiwanis. We don't know what's going to happen in the technology sector because it does change, seems like every day, but experts are predicting that it's going to be about 1,000 times better than what we're currently using right now, which is interesting. In the social sciences field, we do know a little bit about relationships. Friendships are going to change. Computers are going to enable less human contact. We saw this significantly over the past 18 to 19 months as many of us were locked in and locked down, and we're not able to have human contact with each other. But we do know that relationships are going to change. In the education field, brick and mortar schools will be an option. Virtual education will be the norm. We had our first test of this, again, the past 18 months. It's not ideal, but we do know this is where it's going to be. I was actually part of this several years ago. All of my doctoral coursework was done through an online program. I did meet with my cohort 3 times during my PhD period, but did all of my coursework online, submitted all of my homework online, did my comprehensive exams online. Like, it was all done virtually. And it allowed me some flexibility with my personal life. In the healthcare industry, we do know that there's going to be quite a bit of significant research done in genomic treatment. Experts are predicting that we will be able to cure people, using their genes and doing manipulation. And there'll be implanted technology to help monitor our bodies, which is going to be interesting. And some of that already exists today. So we do know that a lot will change in the next 30, 35 years, but a lot won't change. And one of the big significant pieces is, and this is globally, social scientists will say in the next 30 years, the need to belong to something greater than ourselves will remain the same. The need to volunteer, the need to help people, the need to be with people, that will remain the same. Even with all this change happening around us, the need to help will remain the same. That is a huge win for an organization like Kiwanis. Huge win. So now what? What do we do with all of this stuff? How do we encourage our clubs to rediscover themselves in their communities? And my challenge to all of us, and also a Kiwanian, is that we start thinking about Kiwanis in the year 2050. We think typically in 1-year cycles in the Kiwaniverse. And we typically think, and no offense to Governor Rowland and Governor Ken coming in after, like, we think, in terms of international president and trustee and governor. And what we don't think is, hey, we need to start planning 30 years out. And the district division clubs, they really need to think big picture. What's going to happen in our communities 30 years from now. And it's hard for us to do this because we don't want to pause the work that has happened and is happening. We were forced to pause the past 18 months, but to tell a club, hey, you need to stop for a minute and think about what's going to happen in your community, that's not going to go over well. They will not receive that message very well. But we definitely need to slow down a little bit. I'll use the analogy, if you've been to an amusement park, typically when you go to purchase your ticket, there's a sign that says, here are the list of rides that are not operational today. And most of those rides are offline for routine maintenance. Our vehicles go in for oil changes. They go in for routine maintenance. We go to the doctor to get routine maintenance. I just had my yearly physical 2 days ago. And you get poked and prodded and you answer all these questions and keep going. And so what we're finding, though, is our Kiwanis clubs don't do a lot of routine maintenance. They don't go offline for a little bit because they have to keep moving, right? There's the need to serve children. But they don't also slow down and think. They can be doing 2 things at once. And it's important for them to do that. Statistically, we know that Western Canada is decreased in membership. There's no doubting that. The membership has slowly been declining. There's been a 25% loss of members over the past 5 years. And if that keeps up, as a district, that could be a challenge. That could be a challenge. We also know that several communities in the Western Canada district are growing significantly. A lot of industry technology is moving to various communities, and there is an opportunity to grow and help with that. A really simple thing that we can encourage our clubs to do is to use the roster analysis worksheet. This is a pretty cool worksheet if you've never used it before. It's not a roster of your members' names. It's actually a roster of your members and the professions that they occupied or are currently occupying. The example I'll use is I visited a club in a district, and about 90% of their members knew each other because they all worked in the accounting fields. They were all accountants or in the actuary science field. And they were very hesitant to bring anybody from outside of accounting because I don't know if you've worked with an accountant, no offense. They like numbers, right? They like to be with the Excel spreadsheet and yeah, it's just what they do. And the challenge that I presented to them was, I'd like you to use this worksheet and look at your community. Does your community have a lot of these professions represented? Yes. Well, let's target a couple of those and go after them. And they did. They picked one from each letter where applicable. And they said, let's bring in, there's 26 letters in the alphabet. Let's bring in 26 new members, one from each letter over the next year or two. They took it slow and steady. And I love the challenge. They can have a 26 member growth, and they're doing it behind the scenes by looking at professions. Do we have a banker? Do we have a firefighter? Do we have a librarian? And they're just literally working their way through the alphabet. Who do we know in the community that we can go and talk to based on their profession? Because those seats are needed at the table. It's a great challenge. And it was something that they were able to manage. And they're just doing it through good old fashioned alphabet soup. It's kind of cool. And I hope they do this. Another thing that we do know about our members is the value of our membership. I don't know if you've seen this number before, but the value of 1 hour of service is equivalent to $31.99 Canadian. What that means is if you are volunteering for an organization and they had to pay somebody, put them on the payroll to do that work, whether it's cleaning up or making bags or creating whatever you're volunteering to do, paint the classroom, it would cost that business approximately $31.99 Canadian to do that. Payroll, taxes, you have to pay insurance, workers' comp, the whole 9 yards. And so for every hour that we can give an organization, that saves that organization, such as the Boys and Girls Club, $31.99, $32 if you round up. That's a lot. That's a lot of money that we can do. A lot of our clubs don't use this number to their advantage. This is a great selling point for a potential member. Hey, did you know that if you join our club, we can help all these communities save about $32 an hour by providing hands-on service for them? What an impact we can have in our community by doing this. And so it's a great piece to help with that. We have found that people volunteer because this number resonates with them. In the United States, it's approximately $25 US. And that dollar amount sinks in with potential members. And it's also a great motivator for clubs. Hey, we need to get out and recruit some more members because these businesses can't afford $32 Canadian every hour for the labor and manpower they need. People will join, they will also join an organization if they truly believe it's mission-centric. And I put 3 up there that this is my personal belief. I think are mission-centric. They have a clear and concise mission statement. You know what they do, and you can see the impact that they're having, whether it's the hospital, UNICEF, or Food Banks Canada. You know they're helping. You know they're making an impact. And so people will join knowing that we're connected to these organizations, such as our Partners Program. They want to know that their contributions, their valuable time is going to help something that's mission-centric. Kiwanis has a very simple mission, serving the children of the world. We do it one child, one community at a time. It's very simple. I joined my Kiwanis Club because I want to know that my time is going to be used appropriately and in those communities. People will also join an organization, this is a global fact, is to close the people gap. We are, as I mentioned before, we're becoming more and more separated, especially the past 18 months, lockdown. We're becoming more and more separated, and it's creating a people gap. And so people are joining service organizations because it's closing the people gap. It's bringing them back together to do something that's of common belief and it just feels right. It has that altruistic sense of I'm giving back and it's making an impact. The other reason why people will join an organization is they tend to be social mavericks. Social mavericks are people who like to create change for social action. And there are some extreme, highly visible social maverick organizations. 2 examples, Mothers Against Drunk Driving. This was a big movement, especially here in the United States. Mothers were sick and tired of burying their children and not having the appropriate laws on the books to to enforce drunk driving. And so Mothers Against Drunk Driving, or MAD, M-A-D-D, MAD, organized, and it became this grassroots organization to create policy change, educate, and bring awareness to the idea of being intoxicated and driving a vehicle. The other that's most recent is the Black Lives Matter movement. That is a social maverick movement, bringing awareness to non-Caucasian people. And this doesn't need to be an extreme. Your Kiwanis club doesn't need to be an extreme, highly visible, but they want to join a club that is going to be having that maverick type of impact in the community. I know that my hands-on service once or twice a month is making a difference with the local school or with the food bank or whatever the situation is. What people are most likely joining, though, is a fork and knife club. Is a club that meets over meals, and they get together once a week. They have a meal together. They discuss what's going on. They listen to a speaker. They chit chat in the hallway, and then they go home. That doesn't interest me. That totally doesn't interest me. I want to know that I'm having an impact. And this is where people are disconnected. Is a lot of our clubs, this is that operating 30 years in the past. We relied, 30 years ago, we didn't have the technology, the text messaging that we have today. But we relied on coming together and breaking bread and sharing information and then going out and doing work. Fork and knife club, right? And that's just not working well. It's not working well for a potential member. People are not joining if it's going to be that type of thing. People will join if they know that the club is socially engaged. And the key word in this image is passion. So many of our Kiwanis clubs will tell you about, we're so proud of this project. We're so, but it's the same 5 people doing it over and over again. And they're just losing steam. They're losing steam, and that passion to serve and that passion to help is not there. But I bet my next paycheck that most of us can talk about our Kiwanis movement. That time when we really felt like I was in the right time, in the right place, doing something that helped a child. And it brings tears to your eyes, right? Like mine. And that's what we're missing. That's what we're missing. So what do we do with this information? What if all of our clubs address the need for social engagement and volunteerism in their communities? What if every club used a roster analysis? I love the alphabet soup. I am tracking that club who's doing one new member alphabetically at a time. It may take 4 years, but if they can get 26 new members through the alphabet and through professions, that's 26 new people, 26 times hours, 26 times dollar, 26 times more people who can serve on committees and get out there. It's beautiful. What if our Kiwanis clubs in the Western Canada district modeled the way to close the people gap? What if by 2050, this was the district? What if you guys were the district? And it wasn't because you grew, we added 1,000 new members. Taiwan's doing that. And we don't know how long that's going to last, right? They overtook California, Nevada, Hawaii. CNH is our largest district because, man, they just add water and stir, and we've got new members. I don't know the impact that they're having, right? But what if Western Canada truly took this as a challenge, and by 2050, every club was prepared for some of the changes. They were prepared for just modeling the way, being the best at what they do, and the cover of the Kiwanis magazine was Western Canada, Western Canada. All people are talking about is Western Canada. Wouldn't that be phenomenal? Wouldn't that be phenomenal? Because you guys have so much to contribute and so much to share with each other. So it's a great thing. It's a great thing to be. I think if our clubs start addressing these questions and start thinking this way, we'll have a better way of getting people to volunteer for our organization, which would be kind of cool, right? Be kind of cool. There are some things clubs can be doing right now. We have the Achieving Club Excellence, or the ACE tools models. They can be holding question and answer forums with community leaders. This is especially important as we tend to re-engage with our community after being locked down for almost 2 years. Reconnecting with the community and finding out what needs have changed and how can our club be a part of that. I'm working with a club here in Indiana who the club leaders, they found a couple of volunteers in the club to meet with the Parent Teacher Association, the PTA. The club was not having any success getting a hold of the schools because the schools are overwhelmed right now with all kinds of changes and COVID-19 restrictions. And so they went to the PTA and said, parents of the currently enrolled students, what do you need? How can our club be part of the movement that you're doing in the school to provide help for the teachers, for the administrators, and most importantly, for those kids in the out of classroom experience? And they created a connection. They created an absolute connection. And that club is busier because they have so many needs. They are purposeful, they are driven, and they are taking it one day at a time, because they went and talked with people. They didn't just assume or say, hey, I know a teacher, I bet she can tell me what's going on. They actually went to another association, like-minded, and said, what can we do? One of our clubs used, the roster analysis. But as district leaders, we need to be prepared for, we've always done it this way. When we talk to a club or a lieutenant governor, we've always done it this way. I don't want to change because this is what we do. And my friends, the research shows that things are going to change rapidly in the next 30 years. Maybe not the next 3, but in the next 30 years. And if we don't start looking towards the future, we're going to lose that impact that we have. We're going to lose that opportunity to be part of the community. There's a lot of additional reading that's available, and the district has my slide deck. So if you're very curious to read up on this, or you want to grab a book or view a website, the European Solidarity Corps is absolutely fascinating. The work that they're doing, because it's targeted at youth. This is that under 35 audience. It's getting youth involved in Solidarity Corps or volunteer organizations. And Kiwanis is definitely part of that in a couple of countries. Slovakia is our model right now. Some really good things happening in Slovakia. So there's a lot out there. So, again, people volunteer because they want to know that they're having an impact. They don't want to join the Fork and Knife Club. They want to know that what they're doing is the right thing. I don't have the right answer as to what every club can do, and you guys probably don't either. However, I think if we can start having these big picture conversations, the better off that we can be 30 years from now. I don't know if I'm going to be around in 30 years. I don't know if I'm going to be here in I'm 53. I hope I'm here in 2050. But I honestly don't know. Looking at my family history, and good Lord, I have no idea. But I definitely want to know that I've left a legacy. I definitely want to know that I left a legacy. I spent time as a dean of students on a campus, and I was asked several times, how do you know that you're, doing the right thing, and how do you know that you're, students like you, and do you want to be popular as a dean, and do you want to be featured in the school newspaper? And my response every time was, yeah, I have a fancy title, but I just want to know that I was fair and I left a legacy. That's it. I want to know that 25 years from now, someone said, you know what, that started about 25 years ago when, ... And I'm actually part of that on one campus. And it's a pretty cool feeling. And I don't get awards for it. I don't get plaques. There's no banner. There's no ribbons or balloons coming to my house every day. But I know when I go to bed at night, I've left a legacy on that campus. And this phenomenal student organization that supports the Children's Miracle Network was there because I was part of that social change movement on that campus. And it's a pretty cool thing. It's a pretty cool thing. And I think that's what we want too. When we leave and go on to our next chapter in our life, we want to know that we've left that legacy, that gift. But we've got to start those conversations now. We've got to get emotionally invested, and not just, you have to recruit more members. People need to understand why, and the simple why is they don't want to join some of the clubs the way they currently operate. And the district has to make some significant decisions. Do we start a new club in that community and just let the other club fizzle out? Do we merge? There's a lot of things that can happen. And that's where we have someone like Linda who can guide the district leaders through the pros and cons and the who, the what, the how. You're very, very lucky to have Linda on board as your trustee. She has a gift. She truly does. She truly does. And if you want to find someone with passion, it's Linda, 110%. So I'm excited I'm so excited about this district because for a long time, Western Canada's just been this sleepy district. We fly over it to get to Asia. Quite frankly, the plane takes off from Detroit and we fly over Western Canada to get to Asia or wherever we're going on that part of the world. And I would love for the plane to land and people say, what the heck? This is amazing. What are you guys doing? This is phenomenal. Saskatchewan should be on the map. Like everybody should know this. They should, they should be able to pronounce all the names of the towns, and they should know that Kiwanis' impact in Calgary or wherever you are is incredible, is absolutely incredible. I really think you do. You don't need to have 300 member clubs. I don't know how some of our clubs do that are that size. I mean, do they meet in an auditorium? Like, I don't get it. I'd rather you have a lot of clubs that are leaving a legacy, than clubs that are just huge and on paper, and doing those things. So lots of information out there. I'd love to chat anytime about this. My contact information is on the screen. Our email patterns are pretty simple at Kiwanis. It's first initial and then full last name at kiwanis.org. I have a long German last name, so it's a mouthful. But if you and you're welcome to call. That's my direct line. It rings directly on my desk. Or when I'm at home, my computer actually rings. That talk about technology. I have to answer the computer instead of answering the telephone. I press buttons and I just talk to my computer. It's like the Jetsons. I don't know, that cartoon, the Jetsons. So it's pretty cool. So I'd love to hear your thoughts sometime, and I'd love to take any questions that you have or thoughts or ideas. And it looks like we're okay on time. So.
You've got time for questions and answers. Again, the next session starts at the top of the hour, so you have some time to continue this discussion or just to relax. That the next two sessions coming up in the membership club strengthening in room 1 is re-engaging your club and community post-pandemic. The session in this breakout room, so if you want that session, just stay where you are, is the keys to amazing signature projects. So continue your discussion and we'll hope to see you at the top of the hour.
Looks like we have a question from Alvin.
Yes, one more comment. I really appreciate, Brian, that you Canadianized this. So many things come out of Kiwanis International that are Americanized, and you've brought it right to grassroots where we are, including the Blue Jays on the T-shirt on the boombox. But I really appreciate that you took the effort to actually Canadianize something for us.
Thank you. I appreciate that. Well, and you have to know your audience. Kiwanis is not just in the United States. You have to know your global audience. And quite frankly, I love Canada. I would love to live there. It's, I just don't know the feasibility right now. But I have just felt more at home in Canada, visiting with our Kiwanians up there, and for other reasons. But yeah, and thank you for that feedback. I really appreciate it. It's not that hard to change a couple of slide decks. It really isn't. And you learn something. I did not know about the 4-game series in 1986 that led to the Stanley Cup. I grew up in Chicago, so the Chicago Blackhawks were, I grew up watching them and going to their tournaments. And every time we played a Canadian team, we're like, we're going to lose. We're just going to lose. Yeah.
We gave you Tony Esposito. Tony was there for you for many years.
Yeah, but I appreciate that. And you're right. So many of the things that come out of our office are US centric, and we're not a US centric office. We're global. And I'm part of that team that bucks the system a little bit. I push buttons, so you've got my 110% support on this, and I will do everything in my power to make sure that, you are loved and taken care of. And I know Linda will do the same. She and I get along quite well. So we share a love for peach salsa. Any other questions or comments? I have told your district leadership I would love to come and visit, obviously when it's safe and I can board the plane. But if you have an opportunity in the district where I can be there to help or assist, I'd love to be part of that. It's just what we do. We need to invest in our members, and I don't mind doing I have a passport. I don't mind doing that. But would love to know about your communities and what's working well, because that's where I learn. That's where I keep refreshing this. And I'd love to do another TED talk in 5 years saying, here's what I did in 2020 and it's now 2025 and here's what I learned. And we've got some things to do in order to continue to volunteer and leave that impact in communities. So we'll see. So, and I get emotional. I'm a crier. And so I'm a crier. So I'm very passionate about the work that I do.
I think I saw Linda's hand and then Mike. Go ahead, Linda.
Ken, I would encourage you, after having worked with Ken from Kiwanis International and in the past as support to the Michigan district, I've had great opportunity to work side by side and learn from Brian. And I really encourage your district to take advantage of what he's offering. He's very compelling. He has great experience and knowledge, and you won't go wrong in engaging him in most of what you're doing in the district. Thank you, Brian.
We're really looking forward to that. Thanks, Linda. Mike?
Yeah, I was interested in looking at the future and looking at how Kiwanis is likely to change, or hopefully will change. And you mentioned 2050. But what if you go to 2030? What do you see happening between now and 2030, and how we can keep our clubs going?
Yeah, that's a great question. It's actually something I've looked at the decades, 2030, 2040, 2050. The most significant research out there is 2050. That's where a lot of industries are pointed towards. What we know the big change is going to be is in education. That's going to be a significant change. And that's big for Kiwanis because so many of our adult clubs are attached to a youth program, Key Club, Circle K, Builders Club, whatever that youth program is. And so we do know education is probably going to have the most significant paradigm shift. And a lot of it will be virtual. A lot of homeschooling is taking place, and this past 18 months, again, has done that. So I think if our clubs can adjust, here's what I heard the past 18 months is we can't get in the school. We can't volunteer in the school to help the kids. Okay. The school's closed. Okay. Well, what can you do? And just watch the phrase we use in the United States, the deer in the headlights look. The what? Well, what can you do to help the kids? How can we think differently to provide services for the kids? Well, we're used to going in and reading to the kids after school. Okay, you can still do that through Zoom or whatever platform you're using. Well, we're used to providing backpacks for kids. Well, there's still ways that we can do that. You just may not have the physical contact with them, but those backpacks are going to the appropriate people that will distribute that, whatever. So again, the big change is going to be education. In that sector. We also know that in the business sector, a lot of companies are building in V as in Victor, TO, volunteer time off. So right now I can take personal time off, I can take medical time off, and some companies are allowing people to take VTO. It's paid, you still get paid, but as long as you're volunteering and you can prove that you're volunteering, you get the day off, but you're still getting paid for it. And a lot of it's choreographed through the company. Hey, our department's going to go do a roadside cleanup, or our department's going to go help in the school. And that's becoming a big wave, especially here in the United States, is VTO. And I'd be really curious to know what's happening in Canada with companies and organizations. But that's huge. The more VTO you have, the better off your performance appraisal will look at the end of the year, which could lead to a pay increase. It could lead to a promotion. So people are taking advantage of it.
That's interesting because when I first joined Kiwanis a million years ago, companies were into it. It was a way of training some of the younger people to get involved and expand their knowledge and how to work with things and how to do projects and things. And I guess so far I haven't heard of anything like that happening, at least in my community in Gimli. But I guess I was also looking at the demographics of Kiwanis um, at least in my district, is that most people are older.
Yeah.
And they have a lot of problem trying to attract members because they don't have a lot of things in common with people that are maybe still working, and that kind of thing.
Yeah.
And it's very difficult to encourage them to do things a little bit differently because they're not familiar with the younger generations.
You are 100% correct. And that is a big reality. So talking, by 2030, the average age of a Kiwanis member around the globe is 62. In 2030, that's going to be close to 72. And we're not getting younger, folks. I'm not, and I recognize my limits, So yeah, we really need to start targeting, but that means the culture of our club needs to change. Again, that fork and knife club, if all we do is meet once a week and they want to be in the field. Younger people, 40 and under, they want to be in the field. And then meet afterwards at a pub for a pint and some conversation and maybe some supper, who knows? But they want that opportunity to roll up their sleeves and help and then come together and have the social and take care of business,
Sherry, you had a question?
Yeah.
Yes, I just wanted to add that is a great opportunity to introduce the Satellite Club to your organization because they can have those kind of goals. They're usually younger, they have their own ideas, and it adds to the membership of the club. And so rather than to just dismiss them because the club doesn't know how to react to them, let them start a satellite club, which will interact with their membership.
Yes, that is so true.
Our Kiwanis Club in Edmonton did a needs assessment a couple of years ago. And there's 3 clubs in Edmonton, so we decided to concentrate in the southeast corner where we meet. Can't cover all of Edmonton. People are trying to cover an entire city or town. We decided our little corner of the world we would concentrate on. Now, southeast Edmonton is it's an immigrant area. We have every nationality there. So we're looking to see where can we best fit in. We're a small club. And we decided to offer a babysitter's course. A lot of these kids are latchkey. Parents have to work. We all know daycare costs an arm and 2 legs. So we decided to offer a babysitter's course. We charge a registration fee, but that's basically so that the kids show up. We tell the teachers, if you've got somebody who needs this course and they can't afford it, shoot me a line, it's taken care of. We're fantastic. At the end of the course, they get a little backpack, a cinch pack, with a flashlight and a first aid kit and their little handbook. The best part about it is we've offered 4 of these before COVID. But in the one class, as we're winding up, this boy says to us, people will never hire me. Why not? I have ADHD. And I looked at him and went, you're the kid I would have hired when I was looking for a babysitter. And he looked at me and said, my son has ADHD. And if I could get somebody that could relate to him, you would have been working all the time. I said, so don't be afraid to let people know that you have this talent, because it's not a disability. I used to tell my son that was behavioral. He's actually got ADD, that he had to control. I said, but to you, that's a talent. That's something you have to offer. People, once you get out there babysitting, people will want you. And this little guy looked at me and goes, I thought this was going to be a waste of my time. And he has been babysitting. And so it's great. We're in the midst of rewriting our program now because we're trying to streamline stuff. One of the things we brought in was a finance portion to teach these kids how to save that money that they're making. And we used an example of an Xbox. Do you want an Xbox anymore? And so we had the whiteboard, and I said, so how much does that cost? Hours do you have to babysit? So you want to spend this much? And they're looking at us going, so you mean I could save money in a short time and buy my own? Yes. So, you know, we brought a lot more into the program, and the kids are really responding to it. So we'll be excited to get it going again this year.
I love that, because that's a Kiwanis club that thought, hey, we've got needs in our community. And that's exactly what younger people are looking for, is that they don't want to do the pancake breakfast. They don't want to, you know, they don't, but they want to be part of that. Hey, I know that this is something that is going to give somebody some wings and let them flourish. And it may not be right away, you know, as in your case, it took a little bit of time, but.
And that's what we're doing with our pursuit of younger members is, hey, we need people to come in and help us with this course. You're not a teacher. We don't expect you to be a teacher. You're a young parent. You have stuff to give. You're a teenager, or you're just coming out of your teens. You have a lot to give. So come and help us teach the course. Usually we have 4 people there for the day, and we're just going to daytime offering, but we were offering evenings, so we did a snack and everything. So it's a full course for these kids, but we want younger people to come in and take over for us that are aging out of teaching children.
I think you can tell, Brian, that there are lots of enthusiasm for this topic. Excellent session, but just a reminder, we can keep talking right till Governor Rowland kicks us into the next session. Feel free, but if any of you need a bio break, the next session, I just wanted to flag, is starting in 7 minutes. You could hang out in the lobby, but please no smoking in the lobby. That's room 3, and the other session on re-engaging your club and community post-pandemic is in room 1. This session or this room will be amazing signature projects, and Governor Rowland will be leading that one. But you can keep chatting right to the top of the hour, but I just wanted to flag in case anybody needed to stretch their legs before the next session or wanted to go to one of the other rooms. So I didn't want to kill the buzz, the momentum. Like this is said, it's really good to have this conversation after your presentation, Brian.
Thank you so much. I appreciate that. I'm actually off to volunteer with past international president Sue Peterson. She is in the area, and she and I will be volunteering together tonight at a pretty big event in Indianapolis. So I'm going to be picking her up in about an hour and a half and head over together. So my Kiwanis experience doesn't stop, even on a night. So yeah, pretty exciting. But yeah, and again, my contact information is in there. I would love to visit sometime, even if it's virtually. But if I can get into your area, whether division council meeting, district events, please let me know, and we will find the way. You know, it's on our dime. I just need to know what airport to fly into. Yeah.
Well, I think with all of the uncertainty that we may be looking at with COVID-19, a certainty is that we will be in touch and be using your talents, Brian, and really appreciate you spending time with us this afternoon.
Thank you. I appreciate all of you. So I'm going to log off and get ready to meet Sue, and appreciate all of you. Good luck.